Let's talk about Gentle and Classical Preschool. Hi, I am Rachel from 7 and All. In this video, I'm going to be walking you through a detailed walkthrough of my experience with using Gentle and Classical Preschool in this past school year. We have completely finished the program now with my oldest son. It's actually been a little while since we finished it. We moved straight from Gentle and Classical Preschool into Gentle and Classical Primer. I'm going to be talking about what implementing this curriculum in real life with a 3-year-old actually looks like for us, what parts of it I actually used, what parts I didn't use, and to kind of help, if you are thinking of using this curriculum, help you think through what this might look for you, what pieces might be most effective for you, how you would want to use it, and what it might look like in your daily preschool routine. All right, let's get started. All right, so I've kind of got spread out on the table here the pieces and the tools that I used for implementing Gentle and Classical Preschool in my home. There are more pieces than this that exist. I bought the digital bundle, which is very, very affordable. I will leave my referral code in the description below. If you have never purchased from Gentle and Classical Press before and you want to, you can get, I think, $5 off with that code on your first purchase, and I'll get $5 off on my next purchase for whatever new unit and curriculum she comes up with that I want to buy. But I'm going to walk you through the different pieces that I used. I will also tell you about some of the pieces that I didn't use and why, because every family is going to implement this a little bit differently. I'm trying to show you a real life look at what this looked like for my family. So I'll start with taking you into the teacher's guide. And the teacher's guide itself is available for free on her website. So you can download the teacher's guide as a free download to get a feel for the curriculum, to see what all it contains. But when you first get into the teacher's guide, if this is your first time looking at it, it can be a little bit confusing on how to implement it. So I'm going to talk more about that and talk about how when you purchase the whole bundle, it does make it much easier to implement what you are seeing in the teacher's guide. So in the teacher's guide, you will find one-page little spreads for each unit. Then in the activity and handicraft, it's called something like the activity and handicraft guide. We'll have a lot more pages that go with the week. I'm going to show you more of this later. But the activity and handicraft guide contains a schedule of how to separate out these different materials, but that is something that only comes when you purchase the bundle. So I'm going to walk through all these different elements that you can expect. First of all, each unit is based around a picture book, and it kind of highlights a particular letter within that picture book. You have a letter theme for the week. It's not going in alphabetical order. The first letter of the week is L, and first book is Last Stop on Market Street. I will say I did not buy any books specifically for this curriculum. Doing this curriculum was a little bit of a last minute thing because it was brand new. It had just released, and I just decided to buy it, and I started it like right away at that time. So if I had had more time to prepare or so on, or know what books it needed, I might have bought some books, but I used books that I had. These are several books in the curriculum: Ferdinando, or The Story of Ferdinand, The Very Hungry Caterpillar, If You Give a Moose a Muffin, Snowy Day, The Tiny Seed. These are all books. So I had a handful of books. They're fairly common books that are in the curriculum, so I had a handful of them. Some of them I was able to get through the library. We have a small library selection of books my husband is able to bring home for us, but we don't have a big public library, and we weren't able to get every book. But the books I wasn't able to get, we watched a YouTube read aloud for. So we did use the book every single week. There is a nursery rhyme, manners and hygiene. There is catechism, character, all about me, and scripture and math. So these elements here, all of these and all of these all have associated memory cards that go with them. Now, I did not print out all the memory cards. I printed out the character and catechism, the Bible verse, the math, and the manners and hygiene cards. I think at the time when I was preparing, I was feeling like I didn't want to be overwhelmed with the number of memory cards, and I just decided to use the memory statement cards that I thought we would kind of want and need to use the most. Having used this curriculum completely, I do plan to use it with my second son, and upon looking, kind of thinking about it, I probably will print out the All About Me cards this next time. I do think if I'd had those printed, we would have gone more into those topics, because using this curriculum helped me realize how much we really did use memory statement cards very effectively, what a great tool they were for us, and I will talk in a little bit about how we used them effectively. But I found out how very effective they were, and so I think now, having used them, I will be more likely to probably print these. I'll probably print the nursery rhymes. Oh yeah, there is a card for the letter and story. That one I'm not so sure if I would print. They tend to have just kind of like pictures from the story. But actually using the primer, I'm currently using primer, and they also have that little card that tells you what story you're reading, and I have actually found those to be very effective in use with my 4-year-old now. So maybe I will go ahead and print the rest of the memory cards next time, because that was a big favorite from the program. There's also a preschool morning binder. In the preschool morning binder, you will be having some work to do with your letter of the week. You will also have some work to do with your math concept of the week. So here's our preschool morning binder. This is something we used very consistently every day. We would build the letters on here. My son would find the letters on the back side of the page. We used all the math pages. Towards the end of when we were using the preschool binder, my son was doing like 7 of the math pages every day. And doing them repeatedly, many times. So this is something that was very effective for us. I actually switched him into the kindergarten binder a few weeks before we finished with preschool, just because I noticed he was getting a little bored, because he was a little ambitious. He had done so many of the pages so many times. He wanted more, and the change to the kindergarten binder has been good. We are still using the kindergarten binder. One thing I will say is I found it really, I liked the benefits of putting all the pages in a whole binder rather than just doing the menu. Different people are going to find different benefits, but for me, like I said, my son was doing 6 or 7 math pages a day. He kind of discovered a self-motivated love for math, and he was doing more than he would have if I had just put in a couple pages, and he was really enjoying it and kind of able to take ownership of, okay, you have to do this page and this page, but then you can do beyond that the pages you're interested in. So that's how we used the morning binder. For artist study and music, they alternate between studying a painting by an artist and listening to a musical piece called Peter and the Wolf. We did not do too much. There is a whole art and music guide that you can buy. I mean, it comes with the bundle. So if you buy the bundle, you have that art and music guide. I didn't print out anything from it. It just was a lot of ink to print the art pictures. We usually did look at the piece of art on the computer. I didn't really feel like my son was going to be super hooked by the art yet at his current stage of maturity. We did more with the music. We listened to Peter and the Wolf. We found a ballet of it on YouTube that we watched multiple times throughout the year that we were doing this, and my son really enjoyed it, really got into the story. To this day, he will, as he's listening, he can picture what's happening in his mind. It's a bit of a weird story, but it was enjoyable for him. Let's see, what else? Anything else to cover? Yes. Okay, motor skills. This is again something that could be a little confusing if you are just looking at the teacher's guide. They have a gross motor skill and fine motor skill every week that you can focus on. The fine motor skill actually ties into always the suggested handicraft that is in your schedule in the activity handicraft guide. So if you're just seeing that, mixing, weaving, plucking, you could be kind of like, what? But actually that is the skill being practiced in your handicraft. And then this top one, the gross motor skill, cross crawl, Lazy 8s. Those are from a book that she recommends to have, that you could get those little exercises from a book. I never have the book. We did do some of these. They're kind of interesting, but we found YouTube videos. So if you just search the name of this and Brain Gym, there are YouTube videos showing all the different movements so you can learn them. There is another section here, which are extensions for 3 to 4 year olds. She suggests that this preschool could be used for anywhere between 2 to 4 years old. And these are a couple other books that could be read throughout. These 3 things are books that you could add and read throughout the year if you're doing this with a 3-year-old. I don't have any of these books, and this was not the only preschool curriculum I was doing. We were also doing purely preschool, so I didn't have any of these books. We didn't do them. They're just kind of extensions. If I had them, I probably would have done them, but I can't buy books super easily here, so I was working with what I had. So that's kind of the explanation of what you're going to see on a 1-unit page. Now, what does this look like on an everyday basis? That's where it's going to really help to have that activity guide. So let's go over here. And I did do something a little bit odd when I printed my curriculum. These are supposed to be 2 separate books, the teacher's guide, which goes all the way till unit 26, and then the handicraft and activity guide from unit 1 till 26. I divided mine into 2 halves for the two halves of the curriculum, and then I put the activity guide pages for units 1 through 13 in the same book with my first half, and then there's my second half. So that's just how I did it, and I also did not print out every page of the activity guide because there were a lot of pages with pictures, and I'm not a picture person. I'm a person who can look at the end of the activity, and I can tell what the activity was supposed to be, so I don't need all the steps. So depending on your personality, I'll just look at this and I'll be like, oh, flower crown. I'll look at that and be like, okay, spinning wheel. There's actually a whole page of detailed, beautiful instructions and pictures and activities, but I was like, I don't need all the instructions. That's just how I roll. I printed the pages that I thought would be most helpful for me, and some of them I accidentally printed in color without intending to. I was still getting to know my printer at this point, I think. This is not perfectly printed. Just know that it doesn't do justice to exactly what it ought to look like. Within your activity and handicraft guide, there's a lot of information here. As you use it, you'll kind of get to know what these different sections are. Some of them are more like big ideas sections. Some are kind of details about, why is this a good book to look at? What are some of the big themes in this? There's discussion questions you can ask your child. If you are doing this with a 2-year-old or a not very verbal 3-year-old, these discussion questions are not going to get super far, but if you're doing it with a more verbal 3-year-old, then you can have these more discussions about the book. So how that's going to work for you is going to depend on you and your kid. Now, this is your weekly schedule, which is always super helpful in knowing how to implement this. So we did a lot of following the schedule. You can see that the book of the week is scheduled to be read repeatedly 3 days on the week. I think that's awesome. I love reading books repeatedly, not just once at this stage. Then your little activity is scheduled for 1 day of the week. They have an optional activity that's connected to the storybook. Here they're working at a soup kitchen, so the activity is making soup on that day. Then they tell you, okay, do your memory statement recitations. Now, the way that the curriculum creator suggests doing memory statements is creating a memory statement board and hanging it on the wall, and then it's there very visible throughout your day. It's something that can be a part of your routine. You go to your board, you state your statements. I've never done a memory statement board in all of the Gentle and Classical programs I use. What I do is I will take all of these cards, I will keep them based on their subject in little individual plastic envelopes. You can see the envelopes are there. But then each week I will put in whatever cards we're supposed to have for our current unit. And this is just a little envelope of cards that I will get out every single day of the week, and we're gonna do something with them. Sometimes we will just sit in the chair or sit on the couch together and we'll go through them, we'll read them. I'll say, what else did God make? My son will say, God made all things. Or we'll sing it, because this is also a song, and so we can kind of remember that rhythm of, what else did God make? God made all things. And I'm not a singer, so, but I sing with my sons. And then this also goes to a little song tune of, I am patient, I am patient. So that my son knows this very well, because these little character statements last for many, many weeks. You're working on that same little statement. But we don't just say the statement. These are always little mini conversation starters. With a 3-year-old, you're not having super long conversations. But we'll sing that I am patient song, and then we'll talk about a time when you might need to be patient. We'll talk about, what about when we're at the doctor's office and we're waiting for the doctor, and it can take a really long time, right? And you might feel very bored. What can you do? What are some good ideas? What are some bad ideas? So these always become conversation starters when we go over them. This was counting to 5 and orange and red. So when we're doing this card, I'll be like, hey, do you see anything orange in this room? Do you see anything red in this room? Just really quick reviews of the different activities. That was also a catechism question. And then we have our, makes me feel safe to hold Mama's hand from Manners and Hygiene. So then we'll talk about, why is it important to hold Mama's hand? What are some, it could be dangerous, if we're walking in the parking lot and you don't hold Mama's hand. So we say the statement. He works on memorizing the statement, but it's more than that. It's always a conversation starter. And I've been impressed at how much he really is able to engage in these conversations as time goes on. Also, one thing I noticed about using these cards with him is, closer to the end of the program, he was always telling me, hey, look, there's a dot at the end of a sentence. And then that started conversations of, oh, yes, that's called a period. There's always a period at the end of the sentence. Let's find the period in this one. So I found these incredibly helpful. We didn't only just sit down, cuddle up, and use them. I really liked having them movable, because we would put them on the floor and we would slap them. I'd call out one and he'd slap it, or he'd call out one and I would slap it. We would play hide and seek with them. We would hide them in the couch and I have a video with different card games that I use in school, so I can link to that in the description. But we use these in very active ways. They are a very beloved part of our homeschool. And I do use the songs. She recommends songs for some of these Bible verses too. So we did, like I would kind of learn the song, and I wouldn't always necessarily play it on music, although I would put it on a playlist that I would play sometimes. But basically, if I learned it, then I could sing it. He would sing it along with me, because songs are super helpful. So that is a daily, 5 days a week activity. This was the 3-year-old level book. These two were that we didn't have, so we didn't do that. It schedules you to just read a Bible story each day in whatever your little kid's Bible is. Then for math, what does math look like? It looks like using preschool math at home. I have a video that is dedicated all to explaining this and flipping through this. It's awesome. I recommend both the curriculum and watching the video if you want to learn more. But we use this, and we did generally follow this schedule. If you were using this with a younger preschooler, I do not think that following exactly this schedule would work super, super well. I think younger kids are going to need a little more time with the preschool math at home activities to really master them, as Kate Snow recommends. Then, of course, it schedules the different pages in your morning binder. So it schedules, do the red morning binder page, do the orange morning binder page. Then it has a red and yellow make orange activity, which is talked about here in your activity guide. It has little morning binder letter activities. So that's where we're going to our letter and we're building the letter, or we're doing the second page and we're tracing the letter and finding the letter. So it schedules them out for you guys. Schedules are awesome. Use schedules when you can. And then the poetry book. So these are the 3 things that were recommended for 3-year-olds and up that I didn't have, so I didn't use, and I don't stress about it. They do have also extra book recommendations. So they'll have L-focused books. And I would always give this list to my husband and just see, hey, what books does your library have? And they might have a couple. And then we would read those, or else we would, what else did I? Or else maybe sometimes if they didn't have any, I would find one that I liked and we'd watch it on YouTube over lunch sometime. So, and there's extra notes giving little tips and ideas. I like to read these because I'm the kind of person that likes to read, cereal boxes when I'm at breakfast. I pretty much read anything if there's words and it's in front of me and it's somewhat interesting. It's pretty interesting. I enjoy taking the time to read the little notes and the little reminders and so on. But the most essential part is probably going to be your schedule, your activity, what you can do, and then the extra book ideas. So we would read these on another day of the week, like you're only reading that main book 3 days a week, so we would read these on the other days, or we would read them on the same days. As far as the activities, the handicrafts, we did not do all of them. Nope, I don't think, some people are more handicrafty. Some people live in countries where craft materials are more easy to find. I did do the ones that appealed to me and the ones that I had materials for, which often were the sewing ones. I will tell you, I am biased towards sewing. So this was a really cute little bear my little boy sewed, and this was a cute little acorn. Actually, both of my boys worked on this one together. They fought over it a little bit, but now it hangs in their room. And we did some of the other activities as well. We made that little guitar, and it's all lots of fun activities. We made snow dough. We didn't do this pine cone bird feeder thing because I have way too many birds. You can always hear them outside. All these crows, you can always hear them in my videos. And they also do not have pine cones here. We sewed the quilt. That was one activity that we did. So there's a lot of fun little activities, and we did implement them when it made sense for what I have, what my boys could do. Now, as far as the recommended age level to do this at, I think that 3 years old is really perfect. I think if you were doing this with a 2-year-old, like I have a 2-year-old right now, I would not do this with him right now because I think like he could sit and read the books, but he's not talking really well enough to do these statements very effectively. I just think he would get a lot more out of this if I just waited till he's 3, and he's already doing, he joins us for whatever we do. He's just not necessarily getting his own thing at this time. I think if he was 3 years old, he would get this a lot better. I started this with my older son when he was probably almost 3.5, and we finished it right about the time that he turned 4, and I think that was perfect because if he was 4 in doing this, a lot of this would have been too easy for him at this point. Of course, it's because he's learned it through doing it, but I've seen, like, you don't know this when you're a new parent, but there's a big difference between a 3-year-old and a 4-year-old. So that is something to be aware of. Is I would say don't wait. If you want to do this, don't jump in too early, but also don't wait till too late, because I think primer is definitely a much better fit for him right now. But this was so fun and so perfect when he was 3. Now for letter activities, so we did, oh look, see, you can tell I'm doing this with a second toddler in tow. For the letter activities, I don't have a sand tray, and I was not, like I believe in it, I'm just not a sandy person. Sand in my house. So we did letter activities, but I have the handwriting without tears wooden pieces, so we used those to build letters. I have these are both hand-me-downs from my mom. It really helps to have a homeschooling grandma who can hand down all her preschool stuff to you. We had these lacing letters, so we got these out a lot. Usually just at the beginning of the week, I would get out any letter manipulatives I had, and they'd pretty much stay on our table, and we'd play with them again and again throughout the week. All right, and that is my video for you today. If you have any other questions about this curriculum, I am happy to answer them in the comments below. And so yeah, the general summary is we had a lot of fun with using it. I do plan to use it again with my second son, but it's not something I'm gonna rush into. I'm gonna wait till he's ready for it. Sometime around when he is 3 years old is when I plan to use it. I do make the countercultural suggestion of maybe don't put these on a board, but find ways to use them very actively if you think that would work for your children and your family. And I do always suggest don't just memorize these statements, but talk about them. Use them situationally. If your child's learning about be attentive, bring up this statement at other times of day, at opportunities. Hey, this is a time when you can practice being attentive. Or when you're talking about being attentive when you're doing the card, talk about times when, hey, when you're in Sunday school class, you can be attentive by doing this. It's an opportunity for you to learn. So don't just memorize the statement, because then it's just words, but always talk about opportunities. Use them as little discussion starters. I have found that to be very, very effective. I have really seen my son applying some of these concepts and even trying to teach them to his baby brother, who might not totally get it just yet, but he's getting the experience of teaching. All right, yeah, let me know if you have any questions, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Bye.